Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey, and today's guest is Jennifer Steinman. And Jennifer is a filmmaker and has worked on many projects, but was director, producer, and editor to one of my favorite documentaries called Desert Runners. And in Desert Runners, they're following a group of non-professional, average runners that are attempting to complete the most difficult ultramarathon race series in the driest, windiest, hottest, and coldest places on Earth. And this documentary is not just for people who love running, but it's really just for everyone. The stories of why these people decide to push their bodies to the ultimate breaking point are just extremely inspiring. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. So Jennifer, why don't you start by fully explaining what the Four Desert Ultramarathon series is, just so people fully understand, what's involved with that.
Yeah. The Four Desert series is an ultramarathon race series, and each race is approximately 150 miles over the course of 5 days. So it's basically the equivalent of running 6 marathons in 5 days, and they're through the desert. So, basically it's the windiest, the coldest, the hottest, and the driest deserts on Earth. So it's the Atacama Desert in Chile, the Gobi Desert in China, the Sahara Desert, and Antarctica, which is actually classified as a desert because it gets no annual rainfall.
I didn't know that until I saw it.
Yeah. So it's considered the coldest desert on Earth. And so basically people come from all over the world. There's usually between 100 and 150 people who do each race from, 40, 50 different countries all over the world. And they are, and you have to carry everything that you need to survive in a backpack on your back. So the only thing the race provides is tents for you to sleep in at night and water. But everything else, your food, your clothes, your sleeping bag, your pad, your medical supplies, everything you need to survive for a week in the desert, you have to carry on your back as you're running. So it's a pretty serious challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, no, that's super intense. And then the Grand Slam, that's when they're doing all 4 in one year, right?
Yeah. So when I filmed, when I was making Desert Runners, there had only been 2 people on Earth who had ever done all 4 races in the same year. And that they call the Four Deserts Grand Slam. So, when you do the Grand Slam, you have not only the challenge of the race, but then the normal recovery time can sometimes be months after these races. And imagine your body has barely recovered and suddenly you have to pick up and go do another one. So it's a pretty major challenge to do all 4 in the same year. And the first person to ever do it was Dean Karnassus, but he's a very famous professional runner. And so the following year, 12 people decided to try it who were not professional runners. And so that's what my film is about. I follow that group of try to attempt to do the Grand Slam, and they're just ordinary people like you and me who decided to try it.
Yeah, and it's really crazy. So is there a few months? What's the set month in between each? If you're doing the Grand Slam, do you know right off if it's 3 or 4 months?
The year I filmed, I think it changes a little bit every year, but the year we were out there, the Atacama was in March, the Gobi was in June, the Sahara was in September, and then the fastest turnaround was Antarctica, which was November. So that was only 2 months later.
Yeah, that is super close together. That's insane. That's insane. So why, what inspired you to make the movie? Because you're not a runner, are you?
Nope. I'm not a runner, and I had never heard of ultramarathons like these before. This is a few years back now, so I think they're maybe a little more mainstream now, but at the time I heard about it, I think the longest race I had ever heard of people running was maybe a 50 miler.
Yeah.
And I was actually at a health and nutrition conference, and I was sitting in the audience, and one of the speakers there was this quirky, wacky Irish guy named David O'Brien. And he was giving a talk, and he he was in his mid 50s, kind of, a sweet but lanky and relatively unathletic looking fellow. And he was giving this talk, and he was talking about an ultra marathon that he had done like 15 years earlier in his 40s. And it's a very famous race now called the Marathon des Sables, which goes through the Sahara Desert. So he had done it in his 40s, and he was telling the story of this crazy desert ultramarathon. And I just remember sitting in my seat going, oh my God, like, what is this guy talking about? And he's very entertaining. And I always have my filmmaker hat on when I'm watching people. And so, the first thing that went off in my head is, wow, this guy's a great character. He was, he's very funny and personable, and he had the whole crowd on the edge of their seats while he was telling the story about this race. But it had happened so many years prior that I didn't really think anything of it. And then all of a sudden at the end of his talk, he says, so what I've decided to do now at the age of 56 is I'm not going to run just one of these races. I'm going to run 4 of them, and I'm going to run them all in the same year. And the only person who's ever done this before is a professional athlete, but I've decided this year I want to try. And I remember sitting in my seat, and I was like, what?
Right.
And I also, another piece of it for me was my mom had actually just been in the hospital. At that time, she'd been in the hospital for about a month, and she was having a lot of health issues. And so I had just come from the hospital and to see Dave speak. And I remember thinking to myself, my mom is not that much older than Dave. My mom doesn't even think she can walk around the block. Like, what makes this guy think he can run 600 miles through the desert?
Like, what's his drive,
Yeah. And what's that all about? And also, like, I feel like I was really interested in this idea of like perceived limitations that we put on ourselves, and perceived, why some people think something is possible that other people would say is impossible. And what that's all about. Like, why do some people think, yes, that's something I can do, when most of us would say, no way, I would never do that.
Right.
And so I think I went into the project really with this idea of, I wanted to find out that, like, I wanted to explore, what is the psychology of people that sign up to do something like this? What is it that drives them, and what is it that makes them think that it's possible?
Yeah, no, that's super amazing. So originally the film was just going to be following Dave, right? And just his story?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. Originally, I thought I was going to be making this film about Dave. I think the original name of the film was like Dave in the Desert or something like that.
That's fine. And, I'm sure he liked that.
Yeah. So we thought we were going to be making a film just about Dave. And a friend of mine who is an amazing cameraman, I called him and I said, I met this crazy guy. He's going to do this crazy thing. I have no idea if it's going to be a good story or not, but, will you come to the desert with me, to the first desert, and see what it's like, and film him and see how it goes. And we were both, we like to travel and we love adventure. So we were like, all right, let's go try it. So we get everything prepped, get all our gear, get ourselves all the way to Chile. We arrive on the first day in the Atacama Desert, and Dave arrives. And the first thing Dave says to us is, so, I didn't really train that much. And we were like, what? And he goes, yeah, I got a head cold, so I stopped running for a couple of months. And then I think I ran about 15 miles one day, but I just didn't really train that much.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
And he walked away from us, and we looked at each other, and I was like, oh my God, he's not going to make it.
Right.
Like, we flew all the way to Chile, to the middle of the desert, to make a movie about this guy, and he's going to be out. He's going to be out on day 1, and then what are we going to do?
That's hilarious.
So I said, all right, here's the plan. We have to find some other characters. Start filming everybody. Like, we're looking for interesting people with a good story. Like, start talking to everybody. So we just started filming every single person on the race. And it was kind of amazing because we ended up meeting just the most amazing people from all over the world. And, I'd say through the course of that first race, we met two of our other characters. And then we really met the fourth character on the second race in the Gobi Desert. And out of all the other people that we talked to, those four people just, they ended up just having the strongest stories and really rising to the top. But it was really hard because we filmed a lot of amazing people, and unfortunately the movie didn't have time for all of them, but maybe it'll be a series some other time.
You really should, because I think a lot of people would love it. I mean, I would like to see all the extra footage too, but
there's a ton.
And not, I mean, I don't want to give stuff away for people so they can go watch it, but like just a little like overview of the kind of people that, she's following. You have obviously Dave, who is 56, and like she said, just, like kind of lanky, not really an athlete. And then, and you have Samantha, who was, at the time 25 and, a law student, and just, you're rooting for her, but at the same time, you're kind of like wondering, if she can do it or not, because, she's a smaller girl. And then you have Ricky, who is about 33, used to be an athlete, but more of like I guess probably weekend warrior, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then Tremaine, who is, past military, and his wife had died, less than a year before. And he was kind of doing this as his therapy and had two young kids. So, I mean, you get this like wide variety of stories that all come together, and it's really cool to watch. So then you picked the people that were, doing the Grand Slam, but, what did you personally learn, going through this film and, making it and seeing, what these runners were going through personally themselves?
Yeah. I mean, we learned so many things out there. And, these people were so amazing on so many levels. And I think the thing that I really learned, that I always tell people, is really kind of what the film is all about, is, the difference between the people who made it and finished and the people who didn't had nothing to do with fitness. Mm-hmm. And I think that was sort of people sort of, and myself included, had this assumption that these people are like these superhuman athletes, and I think one of the things that I found so intriguing being out there was like, they're not. Like, sure, there are, probably the top 15, top 20 competitors who are, in pretty astounding physical shape. But, the rest of the people that are out there are just regular people. And a lot of them make it. And a lot of the people in astounding shape don't. And the thing that I really found, and I think this is, really a metaphor for life, really, is that, the difference between the people who made it and the people who didn't make it was that the people who made it always knew they would.
Right.
And that was really the only deciding factor. The people who made it always knew they would. They decided they were doing it. They decided they were finishing. And they were committed to that, and they didn't entertain doubt. They didn't even think about it. And the way that I sort of realized that was, I would start, I was out there and I was asking people questions while they were doing their run. And I wanted to like know what was at stake for people. And, and I kept saying to people, like, how would you feel if you didn't make it? And they would say to me, oh, well, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, well, no, but really, like, if you don't make it though, how are you going to feel? How are you going to feel if you don't make it? And they'd say, well, I'm going to make it. And at first I was like, nobody's answering my question. But then I started to realize, like, they actually haven't even considered the possibility that they won't make it. And that's a conversation. They don't even know how to have that conversation, because in their minds, they're making
it's already done. Yeah.
It's already done.
Yeah.
And once I realized that was the mindset, like that was the thing. And anytime I saw someone out there who did entertain doubt and did start asking themselves like, oh man, maybe today I shouldn't do this, mm-hmm. they would be out that same day.
Yeah.
And so it was, it was really, and it's really like, this is, why I tell people like, it's a movie about running, but it's really not about running. It's really about how humans operate and how we think. And you can really apply that to like anything you do. And so, and I really, for me, I don't run ultra marathons, but for me, I make movies, and sometimes getting a movie finished feels harder than an ultra marathon. And I just really like saw how, with my films, like I never consider the idea of quitting halfway through making a movie. Like I have to finish it. But I know people that do. I know people who give up on projects all the time or give up on something they started. And sometimes you have to. Sometimes it's the smart thing to do. But a lot of times, if you just keep plugging along, like one foot in front of the other, you will eventually, and Samantha says this all the time. She said, all you have to do is put one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't help but get to the finish line eventually.
Right.
It might take a lot longer than you planned or than you had hoped, but you will always cross the finish line if you keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I feel like that's like the best metaphor for life.
It really is. And I love how you put that, because you look at any situation, if it's somebody that has, a disease or like cancer, it's like the people that always say like, I'm going to fight this, like they're the ones that do. Or, you could use it for any type of example,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really those people who do things that are that extreme, they have very extreme mindsets in that way.
Yep.
But, you don't have to be that extreme to bring that mindset into everything you do.
Right. Exactly. And, and the thing with Samantha too, like I said, I don't want to give any parts of the movie away, but she had been through a lot at one point, and I think like the next run after her hardest run, or maybe it was that same day, I can't remember exactly, but there was like a day where she ran like 12 hours straight. And just thinking about what she had to push through, like, because like you said, at that point, it's not fitness, it's all mindset.
Yeah, it's all mindset. And, Samantha, when I made the movie, Samantha had never, at the beginning of the year, she had never run further than a marathon. By the end of the year, she became the first woman in the world to do the Grand Slam.
And the youngest, right?
And the youngest. And yeah. And then she has really gone on to become a professional ultramarathon runner. And she recently just ran for, I believe it was, I'm going to get the days wrong, but I think it was 90 days straight. She ran the entire circumference of India.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's an amazing, amazing human.
She really is. I know. I'd love to have her on here too. I might have to reach out to her, because her story is really awesome.
Yeah. I'm sure she would love to talk to you. She's really kind of made this her way of giving back. So every time she does a run, she does it for a certain charity or to bring awareness to certain issues. And the India run was really about education for girls in India. So she ran all over the country and stopped in different towns and visited schools. And it was really, she does these really beautiful running, what are they? I keep wanting to say exhibitions, but that's not the right word.
They're almost like mission trips, but she's just like, expeditions.
I always get those keywords confused.
I knew what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome that she's doing that. Did she like finish law school, or did she just kind of push that to the side and just started this whole new like life mission? Or do you know?
She did finish law school, and she worked in a law firm for about 6 months, and then I think she was over it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you put yourself through that and then go sit in an office. Like that's just,
She couldn't do it. She couldn't sit still. Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, it's just like, it was interesting. Like I think it might have been Ricky who said that, but he was just saying, you can't go home and just talk about this experience with people, because it's just a whole another level. And it almost reminds me of people say that when they like go into the military and overseas, but I can see that like it's just a whole another level of pushing yourself.
Yeah, well, it is definitely a whole another world out there, and you're in the middle of nowhere with no technology, no connection to the outside world. And a lot, and it's interesting, one of the things I thought was interesting about it as well was that, these races aren't cheap. So, most of the runners in my film were sponsored or did fundraisers to get themselves there. But, a lot of the people who are out there are, people of means. There's a lot of doctors and lawyers and, venture capitalists and people with money who go do these things. And I thought it was interesting that there's so many people in the world who, every day is just about survival for them. And like, where do I find food? How do I find housing? How do I have fresh water? Mm-hmm. And then you have these people at the other end of the financial spectrum who have everything they need in life and then some. And what do they want to do in their spare time?
Go survive.
They want to go survive. And I just found that so interesting. Like,
it really is.
That it's, the stuff doesn't satisfy this like basic human need we have to know that we are, that we are connected to the earth somehow and that we can survive in like the most, difficult of circumstances. And I just, I found that really interesting that was, what the rich guys do for fun.
Right. I love that. That's amazing. But you and your crew, you had to go out there and live like that as well.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
So you're like you're like in tents and stuff, just like them, right?
Yeah, we basically lived the same way they did. You're in a tent, sleeping on the ground for 7 days, no showers. You're digging holes to go to the bathroom. You're eating freeze dried food that you can make with boiling water. And when we had 4-wheel drive vehicles that took us around, but a lot of the time those vehicles couldn't reach where the runners were. They couldn't reach the race course. So we did a lot of hiking, a lot of climbing, a lot of running. It was very physical and it was very hot.
Yeah. I really can't imagine. I bet you and your crew were like a little bit more in shape after you left that.
Yeah. Well, and then you feel like you can't complain because you're like, well, at least I'm not running 26 miles today. Right. But, and you look at, when you spend a year hanging out with people who are training for, at an athletic event like that, you're like, I think when we get home, we should go to the gym for sure.
Right. And it's like, it's in the air conditioning. Like, I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
They definitely rub off on you.
It would have to. And how hard was it not to I know like in a certain situation, with like Ricky and like, it's part of the rules is that they have to kind of self-support themselves. So that means they can't get any help. It's like everything that's in their backpack, that's basically it. There's not like first aid stations everywhere. So, how hard was it to see people that were getting kind of sick and how did that all kind of work? Were you able to call people if that happened or?
Yeah, it was tough because, one of the rules about filming was that, we're not allowed to interfere in their race experience in any way. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't want to, right. we wouldn't want to change the parameters of what was happening. But there were certainly a few times where, where your humanity just kicks in and if someone is in the middle of nowhere and they're asking you for water because they're out of water, like, we would give them water. We just had to like and then, and there were certainly some things and that you see in the film that happened that, it's kind of one of the things you constantly are faced with when you're making documentary films, which is, these people are your film subjects, but they also become your friends. And we all spent this entire year traveling together all over the world. These were our friends. We cared about each other. We had really close relationships by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And, things happened where, I definitely think, and I don't think this gives away too much, but, the night that there's a scene in the film where Ricky is, lost in the dark at night, basically, and we film him And, what you don't see is that we walked with him for 4 hours.
Wow.
And because we needed to make sure that he made it to the next checkpoint because he was really delirious. And we were afraid that if we left him there, he wouldn't make it. So in that sense, like us being there did affect what happened. And that's just what happens.
But I don't think they would have had it any other way, like obviously the race organizers don't want him to die out there. So,
Yeah. And there were certainly times where if something was happening, like we'd call the doctor over or we'd say like there's somebody that needs help. We definitely would say that. So we tried to be, we have tried to just observe as much as possible. But when, certain things happen, you have to be a friend first. And that's just my own personal philosophy of filmmaking. Like I think that different filmmakers take different, stances on that. But for me, I feel like I have to be a human first.
Yeah. And I think that comes through in the movie too, because even the way they're interacting with you guys, like you can tell like it's a friend level and they trust you.
Yeah, they definitely got used to us. And it's, it's interesting too, because as a filmmaker, I always know how much I'm getting from the people I'm filming and how honored I feel when they let me into their world and, let me witness it. But at the end of the year, Tremaine turned to me and he said, I have to thank you for being here. And I said, why? And he said, if you hadn't been here filming us, I don't think I ever would have talked about what was happening to me as it was happening. Like, I think I would have come out here, I would have run, and then I would have gone home, and I never would have talked about it and processed it in the same way. But because you were here filming and asking me all these questions, it made me really think about it as I was doing it in a different way. And he's like, and it completely changed my experience. Like I got so much more from it than I ever would have if you hadn't been here. And it was such an amazing compliment. Yeah. And I was so honored. And it was also like, oh, that's something that, people that you don't always think about, but, that, and I know a lot of filmmakers, we don't always think about that it's a two-way street and that they're also getting something from us in the same way we're getting something from them.
Yeah. And with Tremaine too, you can, at the beginning of it, you can tell, he's more, obviously he's been through a lot, but he's more closed off. He's military. So you watch him kind of evolve throughout the film too, because he's opening up. You notice he starts to open up more and he's thinking more about, and like you said, he's processing things more and he's talking about them. Like you can see that throughout the whole film. Yeah. And in the fact that that's going to make his family stronger, and for him and his kids, that should definitely make you feel super proud of what you guys have done.
Yeah. Yeah. They're amazing people.
That's awesome. So have you kept in touch with any of the runners afterwards? I know you've talked about Samantha, but do you keep in touch with the others as well?
I do. Yeah. We're all Facebook friends.
So it's real.
Samantha and I are very good friends. She was actually just in my wedding.
That's
so
great.
she and I,
Congratulations.
Thank you. She and I have, kept in very close contact, but yes, we're all in contact and we all say hi. They all live in Europe and I live in San Francisco. So yeah, it's a long distance relationship, but yes. And they all came when the film was premiering and touring. They all came to the festivals and went to the premiere, and that was really fun. So
that's awesome. So do any of them besides Samantha run still, or are they doing anything like that?
I think they're weekend runners now.
They'll stick to the 5Ks, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yes.
Every once in a while, Ricky talks about going back to the desert to do something, but I haven't seen him do it yet. So
got it. I could see him trying to push for that. He seems like the kind of person who would, would want to keep trying to, push himself and stuff.
Yeah. He might be back one day. Dave, I don't think so.
I don't know if Dave's wife would let him go again.
Exactly.
Especially after she might have if she probably wouldn't have got to see the movie of it and see how scary some of it was,
Right. Definitely.
So I know you were saying that it inspired you to want to work out more. So you're definitely not a runner now still?
No, it was funny because Sevon, my cameraman, and I, like the whole time we were out there. And like I said, we all became friends. And so of course, every race they would, be like, when are you guys going to come do this with us? Come do the next one, come do the next one. And, when you're in that environment, you're like, maybe,
Right.
and I like thought about it for a while, like, would I ever do this? And then one day I was like, no, like nothing about this appeals to me.
I feel like if you would decide, you'd be at least more acclimated to the weather because you spent so much time out there,
Yeah, well, I love the desert. Don't get me wrong. I just don't feel the need to run through it. But but I think that it's interesting because running is just not my thing and never has been. I do other forms of exercise, but I think that like I said, the movie is my ultra marathon. Like that's my thing. But yeah, but hats off to them and hats off to everybody who runs. I think my husband's a runner. He loves to run. And,
That's
he's
awesome.
one of those people that, without doing anything for 2 years can go out for a jog and come back 6 miles later. And I'm like, I hate
How did you do that? Yeah. That's funny. So what are future projects that are you working on anything right now?
Yeah, I'm actually, believe it or not, working on 3 films right now, which are completely different. But I'm working on a film about Sheila E., the legendary Latina percussionist,
Cool.
who used to play. She used to play with Prince. She's most famous for playing with Prince, and she's pretty much the best female drummer that's ever lived.
That's awesome.
And I'm also producing a film about Ilhan Omar, who she just became the first Somali refugee Muslim woman elected to state office in America. She just won in the House of Representatives in Minnesota.
That's awesome.
And she had an amazing campaign and win. And then I'm also working on a few short films. So
Cool.
a bunch of different stuff going on. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. No more running movies or athletic movies or just taking a little break.
Well, when I finished Desert Runners, I had a baby, and
congratulations again.
Thank you. So it makes it a little more difficult to travel all over the world to make movies. So I said the next movie has to be local.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I can't travel to 7 continents in a year at this point in my life anymore.
Yeah, just that just traveling there alone is like exhausting. Just thinking about and then throw in all of that.
It was definitely a crazy year. I'm very glad I did it before I was married and had kids.
Definitely.
Good way to spend my single years.
I didn't ask you, but what was your favorite location out of all of those?
Oh gosh, they were all so stunning in different ways. I really loved the Atacama Desert in Chile. And Chile is just a beautiful country with beautiful people who are so warm and welcoming. And it's just, the landscape is just unbelievable. Because it's the driest desert in the world, the ground there, it like cracks under your feet while you walk, and it's so cool. And they apparently that's where NASA scientists do research there, because they say the ground there is the closest they've found on Earth that compares to Mars.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful, cool place. And it's also like right near the ocean, which is so weird because you have this driest desert in the world, like right on a cliff next to the ocean, which I can't figure out the science of that, but it does exist.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just a really beautiful place. But I mean, the Sahara was breathtaking too. I mean, the Sahara, you feel like you're walking around in a postcard the whole time. And
yeah, I mean, it all seems so beautiful. I was just trying to, I just was wondering what people were liking the best. And I could be wrong, but maybe it was just the way it seemed on film. But did it seem like the last one in Antarctica was a little bit easier? Or I don't want to say easier because obviously it's extremely cold, but it just seemed different,
It was a different kind of challenge because, so in Antarctica, there's such strict environmental protections that the race could only be run on these very small little areas. Mm-hmm. So the race had to be, it was basically loops, and you were running in circles. So I think that psychologically, it was a lot more difficult. Like physically, people might not have gone the same distance that they did in the other races, but it was freezing.
Yeah.
And B, the weather there was so erratic that, I mean, there were days where we went out and they'd say, okay, we're going out now, get ready to run your race. And so everybody would get prepared. And then they'd say, oh, we can't go right now. There's a blizzard coming in. You
Oh
have to
my
sit and
gosh.
wait. You have to sit and wait for 3 hours. And so can you imagine like
Oh
being on
man.
the start line of a marathon and then being told you have to wait 3 hours? And
Yeah, because
then,
you've like
and
mentally
so
prepared and like maybe had a snack and you know what I mean? So it's just
exactly, like there's so many things you have to time, like your food, your water, your bathroom, like all of it. So that gets thrown off. And then suddenly out of nowhere, they're like, okay, ready, go. And then you go and you have no idea if you're going to be running for 2 hours or 12 hours
yeah.
because it's all dependent on the weather. And so, I definitely think it was psychologically extremely challenging. And and running in the gear and the freezing cold. And it was a tough race. It was tough. So just tough in a different way than running for, 100 miles through the sand,
In the
which
heat
is
and
in the 115-degree weather. That's a
yeah,
different kind
I
of
was just
challenge.
curious about that because it's obviously it's hard to move when you're that cold, but it's whenever you're in the direct sunlight for 12 hours of the hottest deserts in the world. So I just didn't know if it made it easier at all. It's
No.
yeah. So I'll uncheck that one off my list. Yeah. No, I can never do that. I mean, if I had to, I'd pull through. But like, I'm sitting in a room that's I think 75 degrees, and I'm a little cold, so I I can't.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
I tell people, I mean, people say to me all the time, like, oh, that's so cool. You went to Antarctica. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That was the worst trip of my life. The way you get to Antarctica is you ride a boat through the roughest seas on planet Earth.
It was 3 days too, right?
No, we were on that boat for 12 days.
No way.
We lived on that boat for 12 days. And everybody is like, you have to wear these like seasickness patches on your arms or else you throw up the whole time. And some people wouldn't wear them and then they would throw up the whole time. and then everybody else is sort of walking around like drugged out zombies. and it was like everyone has cabin fever. It's nauseating. You get there, it's freezing. All it is snow and a bunch of penguins. Like people, I'm like, you know what? Go to Aspen. It's gorgeous. It's closer. It's
there's
easier.
some resorts.
Lake Tahoe, you can see snow. You don't need to go to Antarctica to see the snow.
Yeah, man, the whole thing's just crazy. And something else I wanted to ask you about too that I thought was interesting. I don't know if it's in the rules or not, but I didn't see anybody with like an iPod or like headphones. Was that not allowed?
Oh no, some people do have them. Okay. I mean, you can't. I mean, people don't want to carry a lot, and they also don't want to carry batteries too much. So
that's true.
Some people
they wouldn't have anybody to charge, anyways.
Yeah, some people bring them for like the first day or two, but no, I think a lot of, especially in the hot deserts, people definitely had them sometimes. But they would. Like they might bring a teeny tiny solar charger or something with them, but they, a lot of people just don't do it purely for the weight in the backpack.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I was just thinking cause it's, I mean, the longest that I've done personally is a half marathon, but I just remember how much music helped because it's, you get inside your own head a little bit once you get to a certain mileage. It definitely. Yeah,
Samantha has one on. I think you can see it in some of the films. She definitely runs with it.
Oh, does she? Yeah, I think I missed it then because I was wondering about that. I just didn't know if it was part of the rules. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so what's the best way, Jennifer, for people to follow what you're doing on like social media and your website so they can keep up with the the work that you're doing and check out your new films and stuff?
Yeah, jennifersteinman.com. Everything is there. My Twitter is at genfilm, JENFILM. And for Desert Runners, you can go straight there. It's desertrunnersmovie.com.
Cool. Is that on Netflix, or do you know?
It was on Netflix. I think our Netflix deal might have just ended, but
Okay.
Because they do it for a certain period of time. But it's definitely on Amazon, and and you can stream it directly from our website.
Okay, and probably iTunes too, right?
Yep, it's on iTunes.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, anything we talk about, I'll put it in the show notes, and then they can go and like click and check it out. And but yeah, so just go check out Jennifer. Go follow her on social media. She's doing some awesome work, and please, please, please go watch Desert Runners. I promise you will love it. Even if you're not a runner, it's really awesome to see the story of this group, and they do an amazing job at filming it and putting it all together. So go check it out. And Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on. I was super excited to have you, and you're awesome.
Thank you so much. It was really fun talking to you, and I'm so happy you love the film so much. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.